China just built a self-driving system that drives the car for you, and it is putting it into cars that cost less than $15,000 for free. The company is BYD, the biggest electric vehicle maker in the world, and it did not lock this behind a paywall the way everyone else does. I know how that sounds like a gimmick, but it is not. This is the same kind of technology Tesla charges thousands of dollars for, dropped into budget cars overnight. And the part that should terrify Detroit and Silicon Valley is not that China caught up. It is what BYD just did to the price of self-driving, a move almost nobody saw coming. And I will get to it. Subscribe so you catch shifts like this before the headlines do. Here's why this matters to you, even if you never plan to take your hands off the wheel. Self-driving has been sold as the future for over a decade, and it has always come with a catch. It costs a fortune. Tesla asks a one-time fee that runs into the thousands for its full self-driving package, and it still calls it a supervised system you have to watch. Waymo runs robotaxis stuffed with sensors that cost more than a luxury sedan. The message was always the same. Real self-driving is a premium toy for rich early adopters. BYD just tore that idea up. And once the cheapest cars on the road can drive themselves, the whole pricing game that Tesla built its software business on starts to fall apart. To understand why this lands so hard, you have to look at how the West chased self-driving, and how China took a completely different road. For years, the race was a money fight. Google poured billions into Waymo. General Motors bought Cruise and burned through cash. Tesla bet everything on cameras and artificial intelligence, then charged its own customers to be the test fleet. Each one treated autonomy as a moonshot, a crown jewel you build once and sell at the highest price the market will pay. Meanwhile, Chinese car makers were written off as fast followers who could copy a design but never lead on real technology. BYD's founder, Wang Chuanfu, had spent 30 years proving that label wrong, building a company that engineers in-house what its rivals buy off the shelf. So when his engineers looked at self-driving, they went after one thing: making it cheap enough to put in every car they build. That single goal is why this announcement broke the industry's pricing model in a day. But before the reveal, look at what self-driving actually means for you today. Problem 1, the price wall. The systems that genuinely drive the car, not just hold a lane, are locked behind fees that can add the cost of a used car on top of the sticker. Problem 2, the fine print. Tesla calls its package full self-driving, then tells you to keep your hands ready and your eyes on the road, because legally and practically you are still the driver. Problem 3, the hardware gap. The most capable systems lean on lidar, a laser sensor that maps the world in 3 dimensions, and for years that sensor alone cost thousands of dollars, which is exactly why cheap cars never got it. Problem 4, the data moat. Self-driving gets smarter by watching millions of real miles, so whoever has the most cars on the road improving the system fastest pulls ahead and stays ahead. Put those 4 together and you get an industry where the future was real, but priced like a luxury almost no one could reach. And while the West kept selling that future by subscription, BYD did something nobody in the industry was ready for. It made the future standard equipment. Here's what BYD actually did. In early 2025, it launched a driver assistance system it calls God's Eye, and instead of charging extra for it, it built the system into car after car across almost its entire lineup. That includes models that cost less than $15,000, the kind of budget car that has never in history come with technology like this. God's Eye comes in tiers, and the higher versions use lidar, the same expensive laser sensor the West treated as a luxury part. BYD can afford to include it because it builds the sensors, the chips, and the software itself, and because it makes so many cars that the cost of each part collapses. Overnight, BYD turned millions of ordinary cars into a self-driving fleet, and it is not alone. Huawei built its own driving system that partner brands now use, and companies like Xpeng are pushing their software even further. The West spent a decade deciding who would pay for autonomy. China spent it deciding how to give it to everyone. But the free price tag is not even the number I have been holding back. Here it is. Self-driving only gets smarter by learning from real-world miles, and BYD now puts that system into more new cars than almost anyone, all feeding data back every single day. For years, Tesla's biggest edge was exactly that, a giant fleet teaching its software faster than anyone could match. BYD just matched that edge and then gave the technology away for free. So the threat to Tesla runs deeper than a rival catching up on the road. Tesla turned self-driving into a paid software business, and BYD just made the thing it sells free. You cannot charge several $1,000s for something your competitor hands out at no cost. That is the part that should keep Silicon Valley up at night. And here is where a story about a car feature becomes something bigger. Self-driving is far more than a convenience. It is one of the most valuable technologies of the next 20 years, tied to artificial intelligence, computing power, and oceans of data about how people and cities move. America tried to slow China down by cutting off the most advanced computer chips, the kind these systems were supposed to need. So Chinese companies built their own chips and their own software and rolled it out anyway, in millions of cars. Meanwhile, America's own robotaxi bet stumbled. General Motors poured billions into its Cruise division, then pulled the plug after a safety crisis. Western regulators are still writing the rulebook, arguing over who is liable when software is driving. China is already deploying at a scale the West has not come close to. The lead in a technology America assumed it owned is quietly slipping east. That is what makes this moment different from another speck on a slide. The West spent the last decade treating self-driving as a luxury to be sold to the few. China just decided it should come standard for the many, and it has the factories, the chips, and the cars to make that real. If this is where the whole industry is heading, the advantage shifts to whoever can build the most cars with the technology already inside, and right now that is not Detroit, and it is not Silicon Valley. Every car maker betting that customers would pay a premium for autonomy now has to wonder what happens when the cheapest car on the lot already drives itself. And the part that gets me is the speed of it. The same company that was once dismissed as a battery maker that could never build real cars is now handing the world technology that Tesla and Google spent billions chasing. Now you know about this before most people will, while the headlines still argue about whose robotaxi is coming next year, because the real shift already happened on the cheapest cars in China. If this breakdown was worth your time, hit that like button and share it with someone who still thinks self-driving belongs only to the rich. Then tell me in the comments. Free self-driving for everyone. Is this the moment China takes the lead for good, or will the West catch back up? And tap the next video right now, because what China just did with rare earth-free motors is the other half of this exact story.